from a general branding perspective, authenticity is like your most powerful tool, because I think consumers are actually really smart and really good at seeing when something is disingenuous or doesn't work.
Welcome to Connected Minds, where industries and imagination intersect. Connected Minds explores how human connection sparks creativity and shifts perspectives. In each episode, we dive into inspiring conversations with creators, industry experts, and storytellers to explore and unlock game-changing insights across diverse industries. I'm Rob Edmonds, founder and CEO of NRG Studios. Today, we are going to explore how demonstrating authenticity through recognized experiences in marketing that aligns to business goals does attract more buyers and builds audiences. And joining us today to explore this topic is the delightful and very talented Alex Sanson, Senior Marketing and Brand Manager at Magic Light Pictures, an Oscar-nominated BAFTA Award-winning creator of family entertainment, brands, managing production, distribution, and licensing marketing. Alex, thank you very much for joining me today. For those that don't really know the joy that Magic Lights brings to global audience through incredible characters that are forever embedded, certainly in my mind and my children's mind, having read the Gruffalo, I don't know how many times to them. Can you just tell us a little bit more about Magic Light and what it does?
Sure. So we're a multifaceted company. We started life as a film production company about 22 years ago, and we acquired the rights to the Gruffalo, the audiovisual rights, when we made the film, and at the same time sort of took on the licensing and merchandising rights. And it went down really well. So since then, we've gradually acquired other sort of rights for picture books based mostly on works of Julia Donaldson and Axel Scheffler, but some other various things here and there as well. We've done Revolting Rhymes adaptation from Roald Dahl. We've done quite a few different bits, and now we look after all of the merchandising and licensing for those properties, and we continue to make the animated films, which in the UK premiere on BBC One on Christmas Day.
Fantastic. Let's talk about the Gruffalo, because it's probably one of the most endeared characters probably across your suite of characters that you've got, perhaps one of the most well-known ones.
Yeah.
The Gruffalo's been around about 26 years this year, isn't it? Is that right? So, and it's such an incredible milestone. The first question really is, how have you kept that story alive and refreshed for 26 years?
Yeah. It's really hard. I think one of the things that helps is that new children continue to be born and new audiences keep coming in. So for every 2 or 3 year old that discovers the Gruffalo for the first time, that is brand new to them, even though for me, I've been working on this property for 12 years and other people have been working on it for even longer. And of course, to Julia and Axel, it is that 26-year-old beast. But at the same time, we have to kind of be agile and move with the times and look at the landscape and the way that children evolve in terms of how they are engaging with media and engaging with products and trends and all that kind of stuff. So we can't rest on our laurels, and we're always looking for ways to sort of innovate, refresh, look at the same thing from a new angle, which is, it's quite a lot to think about, surprisingly.
Well, it's
But it's
awful
fun.
to think about for 26 years in. I mean, it really is, in with all the new technologies that are coming out.
Mhm.
Still quite a big thing. So, Alex, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received, and how has it impacted your life?
Okay, wow. The first piece of advice that really jumps to mind is a piece of advice that my dad has given me, actually repeatedly, I would say, whenever I'm struggling with a decision or what way to turn, is just like imagining that I'm in a corridor and all of these doors are open, and I'm trying to leave as many doors open as possible, that I'm trying to create options for myself, create new doorways, and trying not to close those doors until you're absolutely certain that's not the right route. And I think that's really helped me to not feel too much pressure, to make split decisions, to be able to keep avenues warm. And, it's kind of about not burning your bridges as well. which is, I think, really useful advice. But keeping your options open and creating as many options for yourself as you can as well. And I think he first gave me that advice, I think, when I was doing my A-levels and I couldn't choose what subjects to do. And he's just encouraging me to give myself as many next options as possible. And I think I've come back to that advice time and time again since then. And yes, I think that would be it.
I think that's an amazing piece of advice. Really, really, especially for someone, for a dad to reach out to their daughter and say, just think about these things. It's a great piece of advice. I think that probably leads me a little bit into the next question then, is that kind of, talking about that kind of authentic voice and how that is recognized through experiences. So think about how the children experience the Gruffalo, how the adults experience the Gruffalo, and how that kind of aligns with the goals that you have, strategies you have around that to bring in more buyers into the Magic Live brand.
Yeah, that's a huge question, isn't it?
It is a big question.
I feel like the part about how parents experience the brand is actually a slightly easier one to answer, because it's got to a point where it's really well trusted. I think being a book-based property that has some clear sort of educational values is incredibly helpful. We know that a lot of teachers and nurseries will use it as a tool, and then children just really engage with it. And I think this is something that I think I even came up in my interview many, many years ago at Magic Light, which is what do you think children love about the Gruffalo? And it's actually, the mouse. Because ultimately you're following him on his journey, this tiny little creature through the deep dark wood, coming against all these challenges and having to use his wits. And, he looks like this small, powerless creature, but actually manages to outwit them all. And I think it's a lovely way of sort of message where children can read and feel empowered and feel like they're taking on that role of this adventurous, creative, secretly very powerful creature. Even though he doesn't look it from the outside. And I kind of think that's what we have to keep in mind in terms of how how children really engage with the brand, and then let that inform our strategy. And those two things, with that parent trust and the child love coming together to allow us to build something that you could say, where people feel like they're going to be able to trust what we put out into the world, for its quality and, just consistency, I suppose.
Do you kind of think about the kind of strategies of things you're going to do? Do you look at the kind of marketing landscape and go, okay, what are the things this year we're going to kind of leverage some of the Gruffalo brand? I mean, not just the Gruffalo brand, because obviously Magic Light have a lot of brands under your roof. Yeah. So do you look at the landscape? And what I'm trying to kind of figure out here is how you look at the landscape and the calendars ahead and work out, okay, well, what are the strategies we need to do? I don't know, so TikTok and Instagram, and what are those kind of assets that you're going to put around those to keep the brands that you've got, the characters you've got, in the forefront of people's minds?
Yeah. So we do have to do a lot of that forecasting. We work with agencies to do research and do brand planning, and look at those trends that are coming forward. And then, of course, unlike many brands where you're selling to the person that buys it is the person that uses it. In this case, the person that uses it is generally not buying it. Their parent or grandparent or, favorite aunt is going to buy it. Yeah. So we have to do a double point of contact. So we create experiences for children to really immerse them in the world. That's all about the products, the toys, the huge amount of trails and sort of location-based events in real-world experiences that we create for children to feel like they're part of the story. And then, of course, there is social media, there is digital marketing, there's retail marketing, and all of those other points of contact that are more for parents and for whoever's going to make that final sort of decision to purchase, I suppose.
And how, within that marketing ecosystem you're sort of developing and you're putting out there, how do you integrate video into that? How do you kind of, I guess, because obviously you've got your films, the feature films that are made by a few studios. Yeah. How do you go about implementing, bringing that kind of authentic experience through video content and working out really what those authentic experiences might look like and may resonate, like you said, there's 2 points of contact here, right?
Mm.
The parents and parents, aunties, older relationships, and also the kids.
Yeah, for sure. So there's the top tier, if you like, which is our content, our films that we put out and we produce for BBC One. And that's kind of our creme de la creme. And that is for the kids. But we really see them as actually family films, and we know a lot of people sit down with their children to watch them together, which is such a lovely place to be created here. And then when we get into a more sort of nebulous digital space, we've got maybe like Instagram Reels, for example, which are mostly targeted towards, mainly towards mums specifically, but obviously some other parents too. And then that might be talking about specific experiences, things you can do with your kids, days out, product promos. And then on the other side, we've got our YouTube channel, which is aimed more, for YouTube kids really, and has grown exponentially in the last couple of years actually. And that is where we know we're able to communicate directly with kids, and we have a lot of compilations of our existing content. We dabble with some other kinds of creativity and content that, for example, NRG has helped us with, and try to create content and put things out that are just going to capture the imagination and bring them into the world a bit more, show them something they haven't seen before maybe, and introduce them to there's different touch points as well.
And with the because I want to kind of talk about, because we all talk about video and talk about how we use video, but actually it has to be part of and I love that word you use, nebula. It has to be part of this sort of nebula world, doesn't it? This universe that you create around digital assets, ecosystems. Obviously, all that stuff wants to lead back to saying the Gruffalo. I know I keep coming back to the Gruffalo here, but the Gruffalo, room on a broom, lunch boxes, etc., etc. Because that is part of that sort of nebula system, isn't it? So, where do you have any kind of sight around where you see the best use of different kinds of digital assets, obviously video being one of them, and perhaps some of those kind of proven results that you've had within this kind of sort of nebula? I'm going to use it again because I love it. Nebula system that you created.
Sure. Well, I guess it's kind of taking the concept sometimes of a TV ad, for example, which we all know what that is, what that does, where it goes, kind of what it looks like, and it does the formula. And finding a way to make that interesting to children and to make it engaging. So we've done a handful of different sort of video campaigns where we've been able to showcase essentially the world of the Gruffalo, not just this one product which you might get advertised in a TV ad, not just this one film that you might get served in a trailer, but showing the breadth of all of those different touch points, and kind of trying to show that as much as possible we're trying to create a property that is available or accessible to everyone in a different way, whether that is reading the book, watching the film either on iPlayer or maybe at the cinema, or going out to a live event, or buying some merch, having a sleepover in your favorite Gruffalo PJs. There's so many different opportunities, I guess, for kids to engage with the brand, and a lot of the video content that we've created has been about trying to showcase that in a way that feels kind of authentic and true for kids.
Yeah. So clearly what you're selling to here is consumers. You want to get consumer buying on all sorts of levels here. So kind of what role do consumers and the kind of feedback that you're getting from consumers? Let's talk about other brands here, not just the Gruffalo, but Room on a Broom and all the other lovely brands, Stickman, etc. How does feedback from consumers play within the kind of Magic Lights Pictures strategic decisions to maintain that kind of authenticity that you've talked about a number of times, to really meet those audience expectations?
Yeah, I think from a general branding perspective, authenticity is like your most powerful tool. because I think consumers are actually really smart and really good at seeing when something is disingenuous or doesn't work. Or, even if you tried to read a book to your kid and you may be feeling really tired that day and you just skip a page or you change something, and the child will notice immediately and be like, no, that's not how it goes. Go back to it again. And I think kids are so good at seeing that, identifying whether something feels authentic and feels like the thing that they know and love. And parents are discerning on that kind of thing as well. I don't know if I'm quite answering your question there, but I think coming back to authenticity and always asking ourselves whenever we create something new, whether that is a video campaign or it is a range, for Sainsbury's, then how does this speak to our brand values? How does it tie back to the story? Does it feel authentic to consumers? Because I think when people feel like they really understand and feel connected to a brand, that's when they want to buy into it. And we do get that sense of feedback. So we get it in a very sort of hard way in data. We do a lot of brand research. We do get feedback, for example, directly on social media from parents. Lots of UGC comes through all the time, which is a delight to see.
Cool.
And
I mean, that's real authenticity, isn't it? When the people who are buying into your brand, into those stories, are making their own videos about, Ramona Brum, Big Man. I can't remember all the brands now.
yeah,
Squash and the Squeeze. That's the dream of any brand, isn't it? To get consumers kind of making their own stories around the authenticity of the stories you're creating.
completely. And I remember, because I've been doing this job quite a long time now,
Sure.
when we really started our social media strategy and we didn't really get much UGC at all. And whenever we did, we'd share it around the office and be like, look, someone posted a video about us. And now we get them every day. And it's still exciting. Like, I personally, look at our social media multiple times a day, looking at what people have posted. Our social media manager does a great job of resharing everything and getting people want to show their love for our brand for free on their channels to their friends, to their family. And I think that's such a privilege that they want to share that with us. So yeah, we love it.
Do you think because of the brand, because of the stories, do you think it's been easier to do that? Alex Schiffer and Julia Donaldson obviously created these, Julia Donaldson wrote these beautiful stories and then actually created these characters from her imagination and the stories that she wrote. So there was already, on some level, I guess, a love there of the stories, because Gruffalo is kind of the David and Goliath story, isn't it? Really told in a very sweet, endearing way. Do you think that it's easier? I'm trying to think, like, the brands that aren't, as gorgeous and as beautiful and as lovely of all the characters you've got under your remit. Do you think it's a kind of easier thing? It's been an easier journey in some respects to do that, or do you think in the kind of digital world that we live in, it's not as easy as perhaps what is perceived as it being easier?
I would like to preface my answer by saying I work incredibly hard, and so do all my colleagues. But is the Gruffalo a joy to work on? Yeah, absolutely is. And when you meet someone, and you get that question at a party, or what do you do? And I am so proud and delighted to say what I do. And whenever someone says, oh yeah, my kids love that, or my nephew or whatever, that's really nice to feel close to people's, lives in that way. And I know that's why we took it on. So Martin and Michael, our joint CEOs, they first discovered the Gruffalo reading it to their own children. And it had only been out for a few years at that point. And, one of them said to the other, oh, have you seen this book? Isn't it great? Should we find out about it? And they sort of pitched to Julia to try and get the rights. And Michael, I think it was, promised her that they would A, stick exactly to the narrative as she had written it, and B, get it on BBC One on Christmas Day with no buy-in yet from them. So it was a big promise, and he delivered. And so I think that's an amazing thing. And it does show that there is that automatic brand love is there, and the story is so compelling. The art, Axel Scheffler's original illustrations are so charming and so detailed and beautiful. It is a genius. I mean, they both are really. So there are certainly other children's brands out there that I think would be a harder sell. But we work really hard to maximize what we have, and also to protect it actually, and try and keep it within the values that have kind of built around it, that we have really nurtured over the years. So I think there's a bit of both, because also the tricky thing is, in doing that, in protecting those values, you close certain doors, and you create a tighter world for yourself to operate within, because you want to stay true to that and have that sort of authenticity that we spoke about.
Let's say a new children's brand's coming out, a new story is coming out, based on someone's imagination. What advice would you have for that brand to kind of to bring it to life, to on some respects kind of have the success that the Gruffalo's got within the context of like the world that we live in today? Because obviously the Gruffalo's 26 years old, and it has millions and millions of followers. And I'm one of those followers. My kids absolutely love. I mean, they're all grown up now, but at the time, I must have read the Gruffalo about 1,000 times to them. And by the way, going back to that story you said earlier, I can, if I was very tired and I was reading the Gruffalo to my kids and they fell asleep and I just skipped a couple of pages, they would wake up and go, "You dad." So, so going back to my question is that, for a new brand that's coming out, that's trying to not emulate in any way, but what advice would you have for those kind of brands, Alex?
Well, firstly, just identifying what your brand values are is crucial, and being really sticking to them and sticking to your principles, but also being patient, because the Gruffalo is still definitely not the biggest brand in the UK. It may well never be the biggest brand, but that's not our goal. Our goal is about longevity and about care and about having that really special nostalgic kind of place for families. So
That's such a what you just said there is such an important thing, though, isn't it? It's about sticking to your brand values. It's about sticking to your goals, your authenticity, and being very clear on what it is you want to do with the brand. Because I think that's clearly what's coming through for me about all this, is absolutely knowing what you want to do with the brand.
Yeah, completely. Having that vision in mind and taking people that you need to work with on that journey with you, and having people that you can trust to really build and push it forward. Really, really crucial. But also, so for us, being patient is part of that. And a lot of children's brands, don't have that same approach. They've got more of a fast and kind of heavy approach with their brand strategy, which is totally legitimate way to do it. It's just different to what we've gone for. So yeah, patience.
Patience for everyone, eh? So within, because we are this is about sort of integrated video within the context of a big brand strategy. What would you advise with that kind of, is it 80% video? Is it 40% video? Is it within the context of all of the other assets you put out, okay, within the brands that you have? So how much do you, I guess it's a two-part question here. So kind of how much would you recommend putting out, but also, what kind of content that you've seen work for your brand, Alex?
Okay, wow, that's a big question as well. So I guess in an ideal world, I would have so much more video content to play with. But because in staying true to our brand values, we have one book, one story for each of those properties, one film. And then, so any additional video content, has to be made completely from scratch. So newer children's brands that are launching now, the ones that are gaining success really quickly, have a huge amount of video content. huge, maybe 10 times what we have.
Yeah.
And they can put it out very, very quickly. So the thing is, right now, it's always been competitive, of course, but it's so intensely competitive with the huge amount of content that's being created. I think it's something like 500 hours of new content is being put out on YouTube every minute, or something absurd.
It is something I'll search, yeah.
That might be not quite right, but it's close to that, and it's an incomprehensibly huge amount of content. And then, of course, there's not just YouTube. There's many, many streaming platforms, whereas it used to be just like when I was a kid, you've got 4 channels, off you go. And also the children's programming is like an hour and a half or something in the afternoon. And the sheer volume of places creates huge, not just competition, but also sort of a dispersion of viewers. So if you want to be mass, if you want to reach a lot of people, you've got to be in many, many, many places. So you start doing like exclusive deals, and you might get the exact audience that you want, but you won't get a very big audience, probably, unless you're lucky enough to do that exclusive deal with one of the absolute top tier major platforms. So it's really complicated to get that kind of breadth, and I would say you need as much as possible. You need as much.
Well, I guess the question then is, why would you want to put more content out then? If you're the question is, well, why would you want to put more video content out there? When what I think what you're saying is really to really get that breadth, especially across children's viewing, right? Family viewing, so much content out there. But kind of going back to what you're talking about, we have, different brands, different stories. They each have a film, and then off of those films, we do some content. So why would you use video to do that, to put more and more and more video out there? Why would you do that?
Well, I mean, content is king, and that's where everyone is. That's, I don't love the idea that people, and especially young children, are watching hours and hours of content, but they are. And if you want to get a look in, you have to go where people are. If you want to target people, that are reading the Telegraph, that's where you've got to advertise. If you want to, reach young children, they're on YouTube. And it's just about going where our audience is. And at the moment, and probably it's not going away anytime soon, it's pretty crucial.
So I'm going to ask you a bit of a left field question. Out of everything we talked about now, okay, we're not quite at the end question yet. I know you know what that question is, okay. You do a lot of productions. Some are stop frame animation, some are 3D VFX and 3D animation. And have you done a live action? No, I don't know if you've done a live action.
We have done some live action, yeah. It's not our bread and butter, but we have done some.
Right, okay. Don't think I've ever seen those. I think I've seen most of your films, but
well, I'll share some with you after the call.
Okay. All right. So you obviously create an awful lot of merchandise around that. Can you talk to me? And we live in a world now where everyone's talking about climate change, sustainability, etc., etc. Yeah. Can you give me a sense of how Magic Light as a brand commits to sustainability, but also within the realms of what you've already talked about, which is enhancing brand authenticity and appealing to that kind of environmentally conscious consumers? How do you ensure that remains across all of your brands?
Yeah. Well, another tremendously enormous question. So there are a number of things we do. So I would say Magic Light, the company, as an office, we have all of our energy, for example, is renewable as much as possible. A lot of our animation, the animators that create our films work remotely, so they can do that from wherever they are in the world, rather than having to bring people in. We minimize traveling as a business. We do lots of those sort of top level obvious things as much as we can, and I suppose as a group we're quite environmentally conscious. When it comes to the stories themselves, pretty much all of Julia and Axel's work is set in the natural environment, from the deep dark wood to the wide open ocean. They're all
Yeah.
homes to creatures and beautiful flowers and plants and tiny bugs, and that world is very much celebrated in the art, and we try to bring that through to the films. And I know that our film production team, they try to approach it, sort of the way that we show the world in a really environmentally conscious way, I suppose, which is more about storytelling, for example. But like in the Smeds and the Smoos, there's a rocket ship, and in the book, it was drawn with like all this black smoke coming out, and in the film they turned it into this kind of like magical vapor. So it's just a hint of it, but it's a little, it's on people's minds, and that people are thinking about how do we portray the world and the way that we treat the world when we create these films. And then the licensing, of course, is an entirely different ball game, and it obviously does have an impact. But we are taking steps really actively, especially within our product development team, to make the impact as small as possible. So we've just put out, for example, a sustainable packaging style guide, and all of our licensees now have a set of rules about the kinds of packaging that are acceptable, the kinds of packaging that are not acceptable, and trying to push people in a direction that kind of reflects the values of all of the stories that we celebrate. And then we're sort of starting to try and carry that through to different areas of the product that we work on as well. We're specifically trying to work with new licensees who can deliver on those kind of sustainability goals that we have. So it's something that we're consciously working towards. We know we're not there yet. The licensing industry is a really a tough one.
Yeah.
There's a great organization called Products of Change, which we're a member of, and they're all about driving sustainability within the licensing industry. So work is being done. Most of it's behind the scenes, because we don't necessarily want to like shout about successes when we know there are other things that need to be improved as well. So let's say the very cliched thing that we're on a journey, and we're trying, but we're really lucky to have a team that actually is really thoughtful about sustainability, and I know that pretty much everyone in the office out there wants to do the best job of it that we can.
I think, sometimes that's a great thing in itself, right? So the fact you are actively trying to do stuff, and you're, within your team, like the team here, we are actually thinking about how we can be more sustainable in our business through productions and everything that we do. I've got to ask the question, because, you are an amazing brand. Any sneak peeks, any exclusives that you can reveal?
No, I'll get into huge trouble. I'm afraid I can't offer you any sneak peeks.
Okay, that's fair enough. All right, Alex. So the last question I've got for you, and I know is coming, because I'm very kind and I share these things ahead of time. So go on. So what creative challenge you'd love to tackle but haven't had a chance to do yet?
As you say, I mean, it's such a difficult question. I think there are so many avenues that we haven't yet explored, and I'm always torn between wanting to innovate and deliver something new and interesting, and, like we said at the beginning, sticking to that book and that film, the story that people really know and love so much, and constantly just shifting between those two things and figuring out, can we do this? What if we did that? How would people feel? Would it still feel close enough? Would it still feel related if we did this expansion? From a video content perspective, I think it's finding a new way to maybe show the stories, to be able to show the world of the Gruffalo and Zog, or Room on the Broom, Snail and the Whale. Always trying to find new ways to immerse children in the brand, present it in a new way, bring other people in. I mean, it's a broad challenge, but it's a constant one.
Well, we're going to wrap it up there, Alex. I just want to say a huge thank you for coming on our Fireside Chat podcast. Some of the insights have been absolutely fantastic, and you have been an absolute delight. So thank you very much. I really, really appreciate it.
That's all. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great fun.
If you enjoyed this show, like, subscribe and follow us. All reviews are welcome. We have lots more fantastic guests in future episodes of Connected Minds. Now at NRG Studios, we specialise in supporting businesses by crafting buyer journeys that captivate, engage and convert prospects to loyal customers. Our team of creative experts blends dynamic moving images with strategic digital ecosystems that connect buyers emotionally to your brand. So let's partner and build a visual experience that drives real results, and reach out today and let's bring your brand story to life. Thanks for listening. Until next time.